Hey everyone, I'm Anthony Gethers.
And I'm Greg Weiss.
And we are good dudes with bad hearts.
No, literally. Our hearts are broken.
I have heart failure.
And I have a transplant.
We never thought we'd have heart problems.
But we do.
And they're real.
And they suck. And that's why we're here.
To talk to you about heart failure,
heart attacks, and everything that comes with these conditions.
Each week we will bring you an episode featuring guests with heart issues.
We're talking about doctors and health professionals.
And we're talking about everyday people.
Like you and I. Together, we'll share useful information.
Providing useful lifestyle tips.
And how to prepare heart-healthy meals.
We'll tell our stories and hopefully make your hearts
better.
Welcome to Change of Heart.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Change of Heart. I'm here, Anthony Gethers, with my co-host,
Greg Weiss.
Say your name, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Greg Weiss with you again today.
Okay, awesome. We have a very cool guest. This is someone I've known for a long time. Dave Brodman, his name is. Dave, say hello.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Dave.
Dave.
Dave, like everyone else, I'd say was an unlikely candidate for a heart attack. I think, well, most funny as we're going along, I think we're all candidates for heart attacks these days or heart disease. Dave was an athlete back in high school, was a wrestler. You also did your share of partying as well. So you had a combination of being the wrestler and your athletic abilities and your party abilities kind of at some point meshed. So Dave, give us a little bit of background about your situation.
Well, yeah, I guess in high school I wrestled a little bit. I ran a little bit of track. Played some soccer in junior high for, I'm sure you guys remember the Hal Block Soccer League back in the day. Starting out in New York. But yeah, I thought I was pretty healthy. I worked out. Still work out and do some cycling. And thought I was pretty healthy. Yes, I partied. Moved out to California for a little while. I was hanging out in the Sunset Strip with the long hair and the earrings and the motorcycles, hanging out with the rock stars, trying to keep up. And yes, in my past, the 90s, probably did a little bit of drugs and alcohol that, who knows, may or may have not contributed to my situation these days. Mm-hmm. But yeah, trying to lead a healthy lifestyle these days. Quit smoking years ago. I smoked probably from 14 to 41, which is kind of funny considering I did consider myself.
How much did you smoke? You smoked 14 to 41. Sorry to interrupt you. How many packs did you smoke a day?
Probably close to about a pack a day.
Oh wow, dude, that's a lot of cigarettes, mate.
But you got young lungs, and your lungs can handle that at that age, and you think there's going to be no problem, but down the road, things happen.
Okay. Fast forward to where you began to have your heart issues.
Yeah, just going back to this December, getting ready to go to bed. Wife had gone to bed right before me, and just kind of felt an uncomfortable feeling in your cleavage right there. And to be honest, I had worked out that morning. It was my day off. Had a great day. Did some yard work. Didn't think anything of it. Well, no, didn't do some yard work. I'm sorry. My bad. That was winter time. But I'd done a bunch of exercise that day. Everything was fine until I went to bed and just felt a little uncomfortable. Thought maybe I'd pulled a muscle in my chest or maybe had some air in there. You know how you get that sometimes. Turns out, tried laying down, couldn't do that. Tried sitting up, couldn't be comfortable. Tried actually laying on the bed with my head hanging over the side. Tried sitting on the floor with my knees on the floor and my head on the bed. Just couldn't get comfortable. It was getting worse and feeling it under the muscle of my chest. Then after a little bit, it started to feel like almost like a pounding out the back of my shoulder blade. And I was like, okay, well, this is a little odd. Okay. I talked to my wife, screwed around for about an hour and a half deciding whether or not to go to the hospital. And then it got to a point where I couldn't take more than 2 steps without catching my breath and going to the floor and going to my knees. And finally decided after an hour and a half to go to the hospital. Good decision.
Okay. Smart.
If I could ask Dave, when we hear other people's stories, we end up hearing the same stories about chest pain, the lack of breathing. Had this ever happened before? Like, was there, like, were you going to the doctor and the doctor said, watch yourself? Did you ever have a blood test? And they said, you got to watch this, you got to watch that. Was there anything like that in your case, or everything was just like on set for the first time?
For the most part, like I considered myself pretty healthy. I did have high cholesterol for quite a while. I thought cholesterol drugs were a scam, did not listen to my doctor. When they first came out, I heard the doctors were getting pushbacks from pharmaceutical companies to kind of. So, I kind of was scared off them, and I was just like, well, I haven't seen any reason to take them. I feel great. Going on years later, apparently my cholesterol got very high. Also, like I said, could have been a contributing factor. We don't know. It was 100% blockage, probably a big factor. I do take cholesterol medication now, as well as some other meds.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it looks like you're in good shape. It looks like you eat right. You looks like you're in a really beautiful place where you're living. And then you said you cycle and you're outside. But part of what happens with the stories we're hearing is that it happens to anybody at any time when you least expect it. And one of the things is that you're always pursuing your dreams. You're out there living your life. And in a matter of a day, you got a whole new perspective on why you're grateful you're living.
Exactly.
Me included. I mean, it's just like, for me, it started in 2004, and I had the same symptoms, and they told me I had a heart failure, and that the heart failure was something between my sleep apnea and a virus that attacked my heart. And I was on all the drugs, and for 15 years I was medicated. And I had a defibrillator, and then later in life, I had heart attacks number 4 and 5 in one day that eventually got me down the road for a bunch of different procedures and eventually a transplant. And I've been transplanted 2.5 years now. November is going to make November 20th is technically my second birthday. And,
how you feel?
I feel great. I feel great. I went from not being able to walk out of bed to eventually this year I had 30 shows on stage. Anthony and I had hooked up about a year ago, and we're in up in Orange County, and we just start talking about bands and bands and bands and bands, and just playing, and just from my recovery, I've been able to really grip on to where I was in terms of playing, and now I'm as good or better than I ever was, that I feel. And you can't ignore the medications anymore, and it's just a big part of my life. And we definitely want to hear more about where after your incident, can you tell us how often you see doctors now? Are you getting blood tests? Is it a whole new way of living for you?
Well, just to say, fantastic to hear that you're doing well. Great to hear that.
Thank you.
Stories like that kind of make me feel better about how stuff went.
I'll put you in a fetal position. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I got stories.
After having a transplant, I can imagine that could be pretty scary, because
boy,
alone for that night. On the drive to the hospital, I was pretty scared. Telling my wife I love her, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think it was your last rites that you were in the process of? Was there ever a point where you thought you were dying?
Well, I was thinking it was a possibility. I did not know. The hospital that gave me the EKG, as me and Anthony discussed yesterday, and it showed absolutely nothing. Like I was normal. Wow. So they threw me back to the waiting room for an hour and a half. That was at 10:35. At 12, they give me a blood test, and I'm sure you guys know about troponin levels now. That's the enzyme, your heart muscle or whatever that shows up when you're having heart damage. And apparently normal levels.
Can I go back to one thing about you and your wife when you're on the way to the hospital? Were you saying things like, "I love you. I should have done the dishes 2 weeks ago and not had to yell at me. Honey, they cleaned the bathroom out, told me to, and let the toilet seat down."
I mean, I'm thinking,
All the things that you normally don't even think about from you know that you're on the way to the hospital for heart failure. You're like, son, I'm sorry, I didn't like say goodbye to you 3 weeks ago.
yeah, I was kind of doubled over in pain and trying to catch my breath, and I just figured, well, I try to be a pretty good husband, but I figured in case it was my last time, I was telling her, hey, I love you. Just in
you.
case it happens, just
So go
know.
back to the hospital.
Yeah, so back to the hospital. So they took the blood test, troponin levels. They told me average was 54. Mine were at 866 at
There
12.
you go.
By 12 o'clock, they were up to 2,500, I believe, or no, somewhere around.
100.
They put me on morphine and fentanyl, just trying to keep me comfortable, because apparently I don't know if it was a storm that night. I don't know if there was no heart people or heart doctors there, coronary people, whatever that night. But to make a long story short, by the morning, by 10:45 in the morning, they were over 25,000, which is as high as the machine goes. And they put me in for a heart cath by 11 o'clock. A couple of stents later, I started feeling great the next day.
Yeah, you had a blockage.
Yes.
You had a blockage, and did they tell you what your EF number is? Your output? Where did they tell you about that?
The aftermath, they told me it was about 35, 40 after the heart attack. Once they got the stents in,
Right.
do 12 weeks of cardiac therapy afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm up to about 50, 60% now.
That's it. You're normal again.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
You're normal again. At my worst point, I was probably about 12. My heart just wasn't pumping again, and they had to take some real corrective action and procedures. And after therapy for the almost a year and a half, my heart got back to about 36, 38. But I was still on an LVAD pump. But the gift of a transplant brought me up to 70 after the transplant. And needless to say, I'm in my mid 60s now. And Anthony will tell you his story. But what I went through, nobody should have to go through. And there are people that go through it every day for various types of heart failure that the muscle doesn't recover. But
Yeah.
the good news is your heart is a muscle and not just tissue, and it does rebuild. And with care, it'll get back to normal, and you look great. I'm not sure if it's just the sunny background and a beautiful day where you are, but you definitely it probably helps.
You have more muscle. You have more muscle now than you did back in high school.
I was 105 pounds in high school when I started wrestling.
Oh my God.
You were really thin. Yeah, you were really thin. That's why I was not sure how you made the wrestling team. I was like, is this guy doing him a favor? Does he know his mother or something? Picking you up?
Just had to be stronger than the other skinny guys out there.
That's
Yeah, there you go.
That's true. So tell us about the psychological part, like pre-surgery, post-surgery. Like, tell us how you were. Like tell us what did you go through in the process? Because I know that mine compared to you're relatively new, because you said you had yours in December. You had your wrist ship? Okay, so December. What was the date? December what?
December 12th, 2022.
Yeah, so you were literally you're not even a year yet. But what was the psychological effects of dealing with? Like, we know you went through on the way to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean,
so what were you dealing?
How long were you in for?
Like when you were there. Yeah.
Well, I was enough not to have surgery. All heart cath is pretty much they stick a wire up. They can go up through your wrist or through your groin, and open up your heart. Put a balloon in there, open it up, and put like a tunnel in there, and that kind of keeps everything open that was blocked. So I'll tell you what, I woke up afterwards. Interesting story. Heart cath, they get you down there, tell you can go through the groin or the wrist. You're going through stuff. You're in a lot of pain, of course. First thing you think about, you're in there with 11 women and a guy doctor, and just thinking, well, this is a little embarrassing, but at the same time, I'll live through it. Start making how it's cold in there, blah blah blah. Anyway,
When you say embarrassing, embarrassing in what way?
oh, it's just because, like I said, you think it's embarrassing, but at the time you're in pain. So I was just kind of making jokes and stuff. And I was also on fentanyl and morphine. So I was just making jokes about, hey, it might be a little cold in here, just trying to keep it all light.
Okay.
Well, one of the recurring themes that we found even from when we got interviewed is there's this issue of male pride and keeping up either a front or some kind of brave image in order to keep yourself intact. And you project this male pride into your experience, and what everyone's learned and come out of it is it's not the most important part of your therapy or your recovery is that you become humbled. And you might have had a real big loud attitude before all this happened, and then when you're done, if you ever watched The Sopranos, you're running around going, every day is a gift, every day is a gift. And it's compelling in a way, because it dials your attitude level from about an 8.5 to about in my case probably about a 4.5, even a 4.
Yep.
From all the experience.
Yeah, my story, speaking of the male pride thing, I had these 2 really attractive nurses in there. And at some point I had to go to the bathroom. And of course, to begin to put the wires on, I said, can I just go in first before you actually start wiring me up? So of course, I ended up, they said, well, just hold on, we'll get you one of those jugs or those jars that you pee in. So at some point, I ended up just letting go on myself. I was still wearing my clothing, and I was so embarrassed. I wanted to cry. I was so upset. I think, and not to sound chauvinistic or sexist, I think if they were ugly women, I probably wouldn't have cared as much. I mean, I know it's like an a-hole in that way, but I'm just saying if they weren't so pretty. And meanwhile, my lady at the time is telling me, well, look, honey, this is what they do. Like, they're used to seeing that, so that's not a big deal. You shouldn't be upset. I said, but you don't understand. It's my masculinity. It's my male pride. I'm like thinking to myself, I saw these 2 hot chicks. Forget about them being nurses. It was just that these 2 hot women saw me pee. Like they literally. But even though they probably see that in a long time, that's probably part of their job. Part of their day-to-day and their job. They see that. But for me, that one particular thing really upset me. Not the fact that I'm there having heart failure. I'm thinking in terms of they actually saw me pee. That was my whole thing. Tear. So getting back to the male pride, like, how are you feeling this day?
Trust me, part of my thing is I work at a casino, which is a pretty popular place around here with the people that work at the hospital. So I was my pee there, even though, like I said, I was happy with it. But long story short, they put the stents in, got me back up to a room, woke up an hour or 2 later, and I'll tell you what, felt a little tightness in my chest, but I started feeling really good. I guess getting all the blood and oxygen back to the rest of your body helps. Makes a big deal. But yeah, I started feeling great, started feeling like I could rule the world. And, of course, they're telling me I'm not going home that day, but you feel like you can.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the psychological part you guys were talking about, like I said, I felt great in the beginning. I got a text message from my cousin asking me if I was depressed about anything and if I needed to talk to anybody. I didn't think so. And she's like, well, it happens to people sometimes after an incident like this. And if you do, we're here for you. And I didn't think anything. A couple of days down the road, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I like to cycle. I like to bike ride. I'm a pretty active guy. And thought my life was over. That it was not going to be the same. That I was going to have to do a lot. And yeah, dietarily and exercise-wise, I've changed a little bit, upped my game a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much back to most of what I did beforehand, and I feel good.
It's not an instant recovery. Yeah, you have to try every day, and it starts with one step at a time. It starts with walking down your driveway and back. It starts with just getting your mail. It starts with just walking up the stairs to, go to bed or the bathroom or whatever it's going to be. And you build on it, and before you realize it, you're getting back to that feeling you had from before all this started. And believe it or not, a lot of it you may even forget.
Mm. I'm going to pose this question to Greg. So when you say forget, is that part of getting rid of trauma? When you say
I believe it could be. My first heart failure was in 2004.
Okay.
And I was treated with meds, and the only surgery I had was they installed a pacemaker, a defibrillator, and sent me down the road, and I was in hospital for 10 days. And they had to really figure out what was wrong. And it took, this was in October. And it took, weeks to figure out how to, feel better again. And, they don't really want you exercising. They want you keeping this level-headed, don't fall, don't push yourself kind of lifestyle so that everything can get readjusted to what the trauma you occurred. And all that went really well for about almost 14, 15 years. And the interesting thing about having a defibrillator is it records everything. So you'd always go back and they'd say, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then one day you go back and they said, well, you had a heart attack. And they go, didn't you feel it? And you go, feel what? And this technology keeps you alive. And then it's the point I had was I had 2 heart attacks in one day, and I went down, and the defibrillator wasn't going to work for me anymore. And at that point, they tried the stents, because actually after 15 years, what took me down was that my stent clogged. And a piece of advice that I'll give Dave is always ask if you could get that thing cleaned out. Because if I had my stents cleaned out, I never would have had the inevitability that I was running into, even though I had a weak heart below 40%. Nobody ever told me that I needed my stent cleaned out. Mm-hmm. So you have one.
Yep. If someone actually came up with the idea of making a vacuum cleaner for the heart, they think they'd be billionaires.
Well, they do. It's a catheterization.
No, but I mean where you can do it yourself.
No. Yeah, no. And
you have to crack you open for that to happen.
And just to add on what David said about getting a catheterization, when you become a transplant recipient, you get 18 catheterizations in 1 year, and it's right here in your neck. Ooh. They put a 2-way. They literally cut your jugular. One day I'll put up a fast screenshot of my medical record, and it's page full of catheterization, and that's when they check for rejection, and that's when they check for your capacities, and they do biopsies. They have a test now called an AlloMap that is basically blood related to give you those same kind of numbers, but a lot of times doctors want to go really right in and get the real deal. But yeah, it's and you're awake. Some people choose to be put out, but then you got to spend overnight in the hospital. But catheterizations now for me, it's once every 2 years, and I get a double catheterization. They do a left and a right at the same time. I got that coming up in November to look forward to. And you become numb. And going back to what Anthony said, like after you went through this first procedure and people go, oh my God, I can't believe you went through that. Then the next part is you went through what after that? And then you had that for 11 months where you have a coaxial power cable coming out of your gut. You're staying alive with an electromagnetic pump I sent Anthony the picture of the last X-ray they took before my transplant, and you literally see a car water pump in your chest. Maybe we'll add it to the when we put it all on, but you don't want to remember these things. I mean, why would you? And then you go into the transplant and you're so happy you're alive after the fact. And then you go through all the catheterizations and they reduce all the meds you're on. And you start getting back into what you knew was your life before it all started. And you keep pushing. And there was an old movie in the 70s, The Gumball Rally, and one guy says to the other guy, he says,
"Getting ourselves."
Yeah, he goes, well, the first rule of Italian race car driving is what's behind you isn't important, and you just keep pushing forward, and you don't really look back at this point because you don't want to see yourself in that hospital bed. You don't want to see yourself going, oh my God, what happened to me? Oh my God, I just survived this. And the medications are lower, the eating changes, the exercise picks up, and you get back into events and things activities you did that you keep you alive and love to be there. And the other part is the support group around you, and the people that you love and care about, who love and care for you back, become the biggest inspirations to want to keep pushing forward. So,
Yep, so, I'm sorry. Wait, let me jump in for just a second.
Yeah, no, please. I'm definitely talking way too much and way too dark.
So, Dave, what kind of support did you get from your family as a whole? I mean, since we're in the psychological part of it, of dealing with heart disease and heart failure, what kind of support did you get? Physical support, psychological, just family in general. Like what made it work for you in that sense?
Well, my wife was there every step of the way. Couldn't ask for a better person. Today's her birthday, actually, so happy birthday to my wife.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Happy birthday to you. What's her name?
Patty.
Happy birthday, Patty!
Happy birthday to Patty. See, if Greg and I knew in advance, we would play it on bass. So yes, we would know that. So happy birthday! All right, so your wife was there every step of the way.
Yeah, she was there every step of the way. She was in the hospital pretty much as they would let her be in the hospital. And there wasn't really much she could do except for sit around after everything was done. But yeah, she was there for me emotionally, physically, supportive. Text messages, phone calls, Facebook messages. I was hearing from people I had never heard from in years, which was a delight to me. Some friends I'd maybe fallen out with. Nice to know they still care. So yeah, there was some uplifting stuff. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of people say the hospitals are miserable, and yeah, they are. Nobody wants to be there. When I woke up from my heart catheterization, I had a great view of the Capitol building of Topeka, Kansas, with the sun rising up over it. So I was like, hey, I guess it could be worse.
Wow.
A positive thing to see, I guess, to see the rise over the Capitol building.
Yeah, no, I was in the Bronx. I got to stare at a brick wall. It was 7 stories high in 4 directions. So, it was, I was going to ask you what state you're in. It looks beautiful out there.
Well, I am a previous New Yorker. I'm born and bred. That's how I know Anthony from high school. But yeah, I've lived in California for 14 years, and I've been living here in Kansas now for about 6 years.
Nice.
So let me ask you this. Let's go back into your past, because you mentioned that your father had all kinds of health issues that kind of tied into it. Do you think at some point that might have impacted where you are today as far as heart failure?
Well, there was a lot of factors. My dad, yes, he was overweight. He smoked. He drank. He had heart disease. He had diabetes. He had cancer. You name it, he had it on the list. And he didn't really take care of himself. Didn't really care about taking care of himself. He's just like, I'm going to eat what I want. And if it kills me, it kills me. He was on dialysis. I myself, second shoulder surgery, was diagnosed with kidney disease. So that's another factor here. When you take the heart cath, the dye they give you to see everything, very hard on your kidneys. So, that's another thing. One issue leads to another issue, and just trying to keep everything moving and keep everything positive. But yeah, I mean, my dad had a lot of factors and health issues, and I wasn't close with my dad, but yeah, like I said, it could have been a million factors. Could have been that. Could have been the fried foods. Could have been the cholesterol. Could have been the partying. Some people say it could have been COVID vaccines. I don't judge. There was that TV show, Biggest Loser.
Biggest Loser.
Forget that guy's name. Either way, the guy was ripped, healthy, vegan, and he had himself a massive coronary.
Wow.
It doesn't matter how much you take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's another theme we run into is no matter how hard you try, sometimes there's just one day is going to be your day. There was something I wanted to just bring up. I'm going to remember it now. Another recurring theme that we always run into is if you end up in the hospital, they always ask you about what they call your family history. And for the most part, what you had talked about basically is all anybody really knows is that no one has records, no one has numbers, no one has any facts. Nobody knows if their kidney is bad, their liver is bad, their lungs are deflated. Nobody knows if their heart is good. All you hear about is Uncle so-and-so had heart disease, so-and-so was a diabetic, this one had cancer. Like you said, my dad had all three. My father had heart disease and diabetes. And when you start using these terms in front of medical professionals, sometimes they don't use it in your favor, but against you. And it's just one of these things that we don't know how to change it. But at some point, somebody has to start remembering records, and they have to start being able to share and access things. And when they asked you those questions, how did you react?
I'm sorry, as far as which questions?
Oh, family records, family history.
Oh yeah, I mean, I told them I wasn't close to my father, but I knew what I knew through my mom and through her taking care of him, and yeah, basically I told them what I knew is he had the cancer, he had diabetes, he had heart disease, he was on dialysis, and when he passed away, they basically just listed the whole list of all he had. So wow, so you actually saw that after the fact? I didn't see that after the fact. I was just from what I was told.
Gotcha. Yeah, because a lot of these issues do become hereditary.
Yeah,
actually, let me jump in on that. I heard from a doctor, actually from Canada, cardiologist as well. He said he is convinced that, I can't say his name obviously, he is convinced that it's not necessarily hereditary, is that you literally adopt your parents' shitty habits. And they adopted their parents' shitty habits, and their parents have adopted their parents' shitty habits. And he just said that, if you grew up in a household that had a lot of vegetables, or you ate a lot of fruit and veggies, you normally reduce the chances of you having a heart attack. Now, obviously, you mentioned Dave. You mentioned the guy in The Biggest Loser who was ripped and had a vegan diet. He had a heart attack. I lived a pretty good lifestyle. I had heart failure. I had my cheat days, but for the most part, it was pretty much, I called it an 80-20 diet, where I would do Monday through Friday, pretty much fruit and veggies, very little meat, mostly chicken, turkey, and a lot of fish. And then come Saturday night or Friday night, usually Friday or Saturday night, I would snack on a burger. And usually if I got that burger, it was with everything on it. It was with the bacon. It was with, it was a Swiss cheese, usually two layers of it. I would have bacon, egg, and everything on it. And at that point, lettuce and tomato were just an after. It was like an after. It was just like something like, it's an after. Just throw it on, because I get that. I used to eat that a week. So so for me, having that cheat, psychologically, I felt I wasn't doing anything. Now, when I had my cardiac catheterization, my arteries were clear. So I think the 80-20 actually was correct, but it didn't stop me from having heart failure. Like, it wasn't like, oh wow, we don't know why you had it, but you still had it. It doesn't matter at that point.
The only after the fact thing I'm going to add to that is you're looking me at somebody who gets blood draws sometimes 4 times a month, sometimes I'm going to say 30 to 50 times a year at this point because of my condition. And I'm a hawk. I'm a hawk on all these numbers because you get a team, and the team's always looking out for your best interests. And the numbers that you don't think mean anything, or you don't know what they mean, you got to start looking these things up, and it's like, really, what's that? Really, what's that? What does this mean? And when Anthony and I started talking again, Anthony's mom was in the hospital, and we started talking about what are her blood numbers, and Anthony knew what her numbers were, and a lot of that is reflective upon your diet and your lifestyle, and if you don't see where those numbers are, because I just know in my case, my records are a mile long. They are a mile long. And I can tell you my white blood cell count, my red blood cell count. I can tell you my cholesterol numbers. I can tell you what my kidney is operating at. And as these things, because they change your dosages based upon your the results. And it's one of those things that I can tell you that I'm not telling you I eat the greatest, and I'm not telling you I got an 80-20. I don't even want to suggest what my numbers are, but before all this happened, it might have been a 20-80 in my case.
When you say 20, you're saying 20% veggies and fruits, and then everything else is crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least you're honest about it.
Well, no, but that's how I got here. I mean, it's I can come on this show and go, hey, I'm a vegan, I'm a this, I'm a that, but I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? I was leading a highly sugar, highly caffeinated, highly fast food lifestyle because that's the only food that was available. And when I got really ill and I had all my procedures, I was in the hospital, and people were getting this illness, and they didn't have a name for COVID yet. So when COVID started, I was already sick. I was already beyond sick. I was already, like they would say, looking at you like you're dead. And it all that went away because it was all the options for food changed when all these restaurants weren't open at night anymore. And I was in my home, and I had to eat right, and I had to get checked, and I had a heart pump that you weren't allowed to eat green vegetables because that would clog, it would put too much iron in your blood. And what the force of habit made me change to, I'm not going to say an 80-20, but I hope I'm close. But there's meatless 2 days a week, and yeah, sure, there's the occasional cheat, but a lot of the processed foods went away, and it's part of that change that is, well, we'll call it the change of heart, because you have to, and not only that, I got someone else's heart to even add on top of that. And so it's really just a question of feeling blessed, feeling lucky, and pushing forward with what you got. And these medications, they always have to adjust them, and that's why I don't know how often you get your blood checked, but if you can, I'm sure since you're a hospital patient, I'm going to recommend that you dial in to the online account you have, because all your tests are there. And the other thing is all your doctor's notes are there, and you can see the results of your appointments, even though you went there and you said, oh, it was 10 minutes. And the guy didn't really talk about much. And it seemed pretty quick. If you go back into the notes, you're going to see 5 pages of, oh my God, I didn't even know we went over that. And, that's, like I tell Anthony, every time we have a guest on, I always learn 2-3 things that I never heard before. And I always remember 2 or 3 things that I should keep remembering.
Yep. So getting back to the diet, let's all agree, shitty food tastes so good. Really,
wait.
It really, really does. It's a serious addiction. I'm sorry. Like when, like I like the results of eating healthy. I was so mad when I was diagnosed. I was like, man, I thought I did everything right. And then it's like, why am I doing this? If that's the case, I should go back. I should go back to eating shitty crap again and then deal with it. But then I'm glad I didn't. But let's face it, look, we all know that fast food, it may be bad for you, but it's such a serious addiction. It's so fucking good. It really is.
They call
I mean, it's not good for you. We all know that already.
What were you going to say, Dave?
I was gonna say there's a reason they call it comfort food.
Yeah,
Because it does so good, makes you feel.
well, Dave, one of the things that Anthony had brought up that I'm not gonna go dive deep into it now, but we wanted to create a segment called "Food to Die For," and it was going to be a list of the 5 things that you couldn't live without. And that worst comes to worst, you the food to die for would be your bucket list of food. So you want to give it a shot?
Well, I know, and everybody that's known me for a long time knows one of my favorite things, especially growing up in New York, a really good Italian combination hero sandwich.
Boy.
Ooh.
The salami, the pepperoni, the ham, the nitrates, the vinegar. I mean, the peppers, everything.
Oh yeah.
Now it's become like if I have a sandwich like that, it's like turkey.
Well, and I'm just going to add, you picked the right one. Turkey's the one to have, because it has a lot less salt in the animal fats that are in roast beef or ham. But how's the Italian combo in Kansas? Just to let everyone in New York feel good for 2 seconds.
That sounds scary. Just the way you said it. Kansas and Italian combos. Go ahead, Dave. Let's hear it.
But I was very happy to find a Jersey Mike's out here when I first moved here.
They're good.
I think they closed recently.
Oh no!
You know why? We couldn't get enough New Yorkers to support it.
Yeah, I think they were having employment problems.
That's true. That's everywhere. But Jersey Mike's has a really good cheesesteak too.
Oh yeah. All about contributing to heart factors, being all New Yorkers, I guess.
Oh yeah. I like you're a Giant fan.
Yep. So now, Dave, look forward to where you are now. So what are you doing as part of your regimen to keep yourself on top of your game? Like what exactly are you doing?
Well, as of this morning, I woke up, had my banana so I could have all my pills, take the baby aspirin, the blood thinners, got to visit cholesterol medicine, blood pressure medication. There's a whole list of things I take, and I take a probiotic just to make sure everything keeps moving after all those drugs. Went downstairs, worked out, do some weights. I'll tell you what, after my shoulder surgeries and my heart attack, all the doctors tell me I'd never do pull-ups again, and I almost take that as a milestone when I could do pull-ups again.
Exactly.
Back to my old life,
Exactly. I don't want to tell you 23 different meds after a transplant twice a day. So I'm feeling your pain. I've traveled your road, and there's always somebody else taking more pills. Don't worry.
Oh, I know. My father-in-law had a kidney transplant.
Oh, okay. I hear it. I've seen it. So.
Wow,
bless him. Yeah, no, and we always suggest people do become organ donors because you can save up to 7 lives with your own. I know my donor did. So
Dave,
you don't hear about that.
So talk about your workout routine daily. At one point you were a cyclist. You were riding bikes.
I wouldn't call myself like a professional cyclist or anything, but I ride for fun. I mean, I used to do charity rides my younger days, 100-mile bike ride, Homeless Society and stuff like that. These days, it was basically between 10 and 20 miles. Okay. I haven't done a lot of that this year. I've had some yard projects and some lighting projects, and I blew my tire on my 3rd ride this year, and I haven't replaced it. So that's on me. This is the year I probably need to be doing more cardio and Yeah, I was a little lacking on that, but I'm still hitting the weights and still hitting the cardio. Trying
Did you
to
find
better.
your recovery quickly? Was your recovery a good recovery, or did it take some time? And what are your limitations, by the way?
I was scared to do stuff in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
I was scared to get my heart racing. Like I said, this happened to me in December 12th. I'm a big football fan, and I was thinking, boy, if I get screaming at the TV, man, that's it for me.
Okay.
But my limitations now, except for dietary, are pretty much none.
That's great news.
Birthday, if I could go outside, my doctor said, if you're feeling good enough for it, go for it. And
Wow.
doing it because the day that I was supposed to do it, the winds were too high, and they told me that they wanted a note from my doctor, and I was like, well, maybe all the signs are leading me to keep my feet on the ground.
Wow.
Well, caution's good, at least for the first year.
But yeah, you feel better after something like that, and you think sometimes you don't have much time left, and you start stuff to your bucket list. I just went up to Pikes Peak for our anniversary, or we tried. We got about 2 miles from or 2,000 feet from the top because they had a blizzard up there. But yeah, just trying to mark things off the bucket list now because even though I feel great, I think my time is maybe shortened a little. I don't know. Maybe
well, the only thing I'm gonna suggest is one of the things that the patient mentality in your head is they want you close by. They're looking out for you to such a point that they want you to restrain yourself from who you used to be. And I can tell you that firsthand because
no more cigarettes, no more bacon.
Well, yeah, that's the obvious stuff. But the unobvious stuff is I got to fix something in my house. I want to go for that walk. I want to go for that bike ride. And you do got to push yourself at some point. And there's that little voice in your head telling you, you know what? I don't want to end up back in this hospital bed. I don't want to be restrained with an IV, getting IV drugs because I pushed the limit on something. But you're going to have to at some point, or else the stagnation is going to hurt you. And you have to keep that will to live going. And it's a hard one. And even now, the transplant people are like, you have to push yourself when you walk. You've got to get that heart pumping. I told Anthony, and Anthony agreed. One day we're going to go into the details of what happened to me. But the long story short, Dave, is you wake up from 13 hours of surgery, and you're in this bed, and your chest is broken apart, in my case, for the second time. And the guy wakes you up, and he says, Mr. Weiss, we need you to get out of bed and walk. And I look at the guy and I say, well, I'm taking today off. You get it. I said, I my chest is cracked. I'm doing this. They go, look, it is really important that you get out of this bed and get into this chair. And I'm like, but they go, there's no buts. You're getting out of this bed and you've got tubes and wires and IVs, and you're a mess. You literally got hit by a truck. Literally had someone else's heart put in you. Been sedated for 13 hours, and they're going, you got to get out of this bed into this chair. All right, and then you do that, and then 3 hours later they go, okay, Mr. Weiss, you got to get out of this chair and get back into this bed, and they pull you up and they go, you feel like walking around? Excuse me? No. I'm taking today off. And they put you back in bed. And this goes on for, in my case, almost 10 days. But after day 3, you're like, all right, I'll take a step. And then they go, could you take another one? Excuse me? Could you take another one? All right, I'll take another one. Could you take another one after that? No, I'm done. And eventually they get you back and they want to get you functional fast. And you got functional fast. You're what? You're what, 8 months out now? And you don't feel like it happened. You don't want to look back and go, oh my God, it was this. Look, you had an episode, you had a tragic episode, you got catheterized, you saw the numbers. They put the numbers in your face and you go, well, if 50 to 200 is normal and I'm at 50,000, well, maybe there isn't a tomorrow.
Yeah,
You
Dave,
know.
let me ask you this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Greg.
No. I'll go on all day, please.
So, do you feel that being athletic aided in your recovery? That it made the process a little faster? I'll speak for myself and say that it did. I mean, even though I cried about it at the very beginning, saying that I wish I done cocaine and whores and ate a lot more fried food and smoked cigarettes, even though I felt that way when I first was diagnosed. But then I realized later, I said, if it wasn't for the fact that I was in athletically good shape, that it would have probably made my process even worse.
Yeah, I would say the doctors definitely said that me being in decent shape helped my recovery.
I have a quick question. As you go on, did you have an incident where you put on fluid weight?
I did not. I know Anthony would talk to me about something like that with an incident with him.
Yeah, me too. I had that.
How much did you put on, Greg? How much did you put on? As far as
for me, it was I think, cycling around the lake one day, and I basically laid on the floor and I couldn't catch my breath, and that was probably the only precursor to this whole thing.
Really? In my case, my weight was sustained as overweight, and I had constantly been overweight, and probably because I had no heart power pushing the fluids out. And the opposite happened to me was that after I was hospitalized, in order to proceed, they literally took 45 pounds of fluid out of my body.
45. Wow.
Yeah. And when we have another guest on, he's going to talk about that too.
You had a small child removed from you.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Out of you. Yeah, that's tough.
And the fluid,
33 pounds.
And the fluid restriction for me was 800 milliliters a day for about 2 weeks, and that's literally one little bottle of Poland spring water. You know, it's a 16-ounce bottle, and that's all you're allowed, including medication, for a day. And that was the only way they could operate on my heart to eventually remove it. But the water restriction was incredible, and they're hitting you with these medications, and you're cramped up, and it was one of the things I'm looking at in you, Dave, is that it doesn't look like you had a fluid issue, and that's one of the most blessed things about being in shape, was that you didn't put on the excess fluid, because you would have internally drowned your own heart in your body.
Yep.
And that's one of the saving graces of your story, is keep cycling and work out, even if it kills you.
Yep. All right, so Dave, our final question. What would you tell, look, and obviously I would always focus on people our age, like over 40. But now it seems like you have people who are younger who are getting heart issues. So what would you say to someone or anyone out there who thinks that they might have an issue? Like, what would you tell them?
Just make sure you see your doctor, get your physicals, follow up. Before this happened, I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably not had a serious physical in about 3 years, because I figured they were just gonna tell me my cholesterol was high again, like they always did. But yeah, listen to your doctor. Don't fight them on cholesterol meds like I did. Take advice. I was ignorant of advice. I was fighting it. I thought I knew better. I didn't. I paid the price for it. Listen to your doctors. They know a little bit. Follow your numbers, like Greg.
Just a little bit more than what we know.
Definitely follow your numbers, like Greg says. That's a big thing.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, you learn so much after the fact that one of the original driving forces of this show was to get ahead of that and make the effort to get a standard set of numbers that if you know you get a test and something's out, you're the first person to know. instead of being the last person to know, and you're clutching your own heart for your own life. And I'm just saying that because I've been there more than once. And it's just it's something we'll all learn sometimes too late.
All right, everybody. Dave Brodman, thank you very much for being on.
Dave, thank you. Thanks for coming on, and happy birthday to Patty.
And we want to celebrate. We want to celebrate the fact that you're here and you're alive, and that we're all alive, and that this platform allows us to talk about this. And if you know anybody out there who has an issue with their heart disease, heart failure, please feel free. And they want to talk about it. Tell them, reach out to us, and we would actually have fun again.
Yep. Change Our Heart podcast is on Facebook, and you can contact us for information leading to an interview. We'd love to hear your story, no matter how severe or boring it may be. We want to hear your story. So thank you very much. And thanks again, Dave, for coming on. You got what we call a unique and interesting experience.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
And go Jayhawks.
Love now.